guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today we're doing my June audiobook wrap-up. Just in case you missed it, I posted my June reading wrap-up, which is all the physical books that I read in June. I'll link it up here in the cards. You can click that little eye and you can go watch that one first if you want to. But for now, these are all the audiobooks that I finished in June. So I wound up listening to 5 audiobooks in June, which is slightly below my average, but I listened to a couple of larger ones, so I'm totally okay with it. So we're just gonna jump right in. First book I listened to in June, The Lost Girls of Camp Forevermore by Kim Fu. This one's narrated by Tavia Gilbert and I think maybe one other person. So this book was pitched, or like I saw it as a survivalist story about girls, middle grade girls that go to a camp and then they wind up having to go to an island with their instructor and something happens and they wind up having to like survive on their own. But then also you get like the backstories of all the girls that wind up on the island. Sounds awesome. This is an adult book, so despite it being about middle grade girls, it's an adult book and it is mostly about their histories, which for me was kind of a bummer because I was wanting more of that like survivalist part because I've just been in that mood with summer and we've been watching Survivor things and we're gonna go camping soon. So this is mostly about not necessarily their back history but their forward history. So you get a little bit of the girls on the island and things that are happening, and then they pick one girl and they go into the future and they talk about what happens in her life in the future, like because of what happened and then also just because of things in general. I really didn't like this at all. It was ridiculously depressing. Each girl had like a horrible life basically from the point of the camp on, which it is called The Lost Girls of Camp Forevermore, and I don't mind like some like depressing elements in my contemporary books or like books like this, but just the way it is, it was just like so hopeless. It ended terribly in my opinion, and not necessarily because something really sad happened, it just was like pleh. I don't know. I really didn't like it. I found it really depressing. I was super glad when it was over. I was really bummed there wasn't more of the camping stuff, which for some people might be a plus, but for me it was just like a really big miss, so I gave this one I think 2 stars. Next I listened to Finale by Stephanie Garber, narrated by Rebecca Soler, who is my favorite audiobook narrator. I reread Caraval and Legendary last month, and so I was really excited to get to Legendary. This was almost my most exciting book of the year, and I'm really glad that I got to it even though it was a little bit late. While I did super enjoy this, and as a whole, the series is just so fun, so magical, so whimsical and enchanting and romantic, and there's pretty dresses and there's just so many things. I love the series as a whole. As a whole, the series is 5 stars to me. The ending of this book, something was like missing, and I don't know if other people have felt this way. I haven't watched a lot of reviews. I just felt like some of the elements that I loved about the other 2 books weren't there, and then there was just like too much crammed into this book, too many random magical things happening versus the other book, and it just felt a little bit more forced to me. I absolutely love Stephanie Garber. I follow her on Instagram. She's my favorite. She's one of my favorite authors, and I thought she did a great job. Overall, I just felt like it was just a little bit less good than Legendary and Caraval. I really liked it. I would still reread the series over and over again. I do plan on purchasing it in the future, but for me this was more of a 4-star where the other ones were 5-star reads. Next, I listened to The Mermaid's Daughter by Anne Claycomb, narrated by Suzanne Crowley. Oh my gosh. Okay, I listened to this one because I wanted to kind of get a jump start for Mermaid Marathon, and in my head this video was going to be up in time for you guys to get recommendations for Mermaid Marathon, and it so isn't, so sorry about that. I so wished I would have saved this book for Mermaid Marathon. This was just one on my list. Just super easy to get the audiobook of this one. I think it came out last year. It was a little newer than I expected. It's an adult book. I was nervous about it. I was kind of worried it was going to be more just contemporary with a little bit of like magical realism instead of just like actual mermaids. It was just going to be like more a metaphor, which is kind of what happened with something I read this month. So I was like not too excited about it. It was a 12-hour audiobook, and so this one's supposed to be like a modern day Little Mermaid retelling. Our main character, and she is an opera singer and her dad is a composer, and she has an illness that makes it hurt when she walks, and sometimes when she talks, and sometimes when she sings. Like her mouth will hurt and her hands will hurt and her feet will hurt. So that was kind of promising right there, is because it's got those Little Mermaid retelling vibes. And her dad is from Ireland, I think, and so they have some history with Ireland, and her mom has killed herself, and all the women in her family tend to like kill themselves in some way. And so she's got this disease, and like the doctors don't really believe in the disease. They think she's kind of crazy, and her dad doesn't know what to do because her mom killed herself. And she has this really great girlfriend that is very understanding and is also an opera singer and wants to take care of her and be with her and do all of this stuff. So it was so freaking good. This is an example of one of those contemporary books that has depressing elements and it has hardships in it about like disease and illness and all that stuff, but it had enough of the magical stuff and it had enough hope in the story and realistic things about it. Sometimes I feel like our realistic fiction is not realistic because it's too depressing, because life just isn't that way. There are great things and there are bad things, and there are some people that literally just have a hard life all the way through, but I just don't like reading about that because then it makes your mood lower, which makes your day not as good, and I don't know, that's just how I feel. This was so amazing. Oh my gosh, it was so magical and it was so mermaidy, and there was awesome stuff about operas and singing, and they were writing a retelling of The Scarlet Letter, and so they talked about that, and there was auditioning and there was romance, and this had a great female-female romance, which I'm not necessarily partial towards, like a good, you know, traditional male-female romance, because I can put myself in that spot in my head, you know, even though I have an amazing husband. But I really enjoyed this female-female relationship, so if you're looking for something like that, this is a great one. It was so sweet and they were so kind to each other, and it was just it was such a good book. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I'm gonna rave and rave about this one. I just so enjoyed it, and I still think about it, and it's been like a couple weeks. Just certain magical things and mythical things, and the way that the characters responded to the magical mythical things, I really, really loved it, and I almost want to listen to it again. So, and The Mermaid's Daughter is an adult book. There are some adult themes in here, so just keep that in mind if you're not of an appropriate age. Sorry you guys didn't get this recommendation recently, but if you're still in a mermaid mood, you should read this one because it was dang good, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Next up, I listened to Golden Sun by Pierce Brown, narrated by Gerard Reynolds. And this is book 2 in the Red Rising series, so I can't say a whole lot about the plot. But so Red Rising is an adult dystopian novel, but it's set about teenagers, so that can be a little bit confusing. Personally, I think it's pretty much appropriate for teenage and young adult readers. I didn't think anything was like overly inappropriate from my personal opinion, but it is set on different planets and there are different colors. So instead of like different factions or factors like we have in a lot of dystopian novels, there are different colors, and of course certain colors get treated terribly and certain colors are treated like royalty and they're in control of everything. And this book was awesome. At first I was like, ooh, this is not as good as Red Rising, and it really wasn't. Red Rising was so amazing and good and mouth-dropping. This one took a little bit longer for me to feel that way about it, but I still am giving it 4 stars because I loved it, and I'm so attached to everybody, which is terrible because they're all gonna die. I just see it coming. The ending of this was so crazy insane, and I did start a Morning Star today actually, which is really, really exciting. It's like a 20-hour audiobook, so I'm a little bit scared, but for how long these audiobooks are, they go by so fast, and Gerard Reynolds is so good. Oh my gosh, he's such a good narrator. He's got a little Irishy accent, and he's so good at doing different voices, and I just, I love him to death. So totally falling in love with this series. And then next, I finally finished Peter and the Sword of Mercy by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson, narrated by none other than Jim Dale, who is my favorite male audiobook narrator at the moment. He might be losing his spot to a couple of these other ones. So this was the 4th book in the Peter and the Starcatcher series. I'm bummed because I can't find book 5 on audio anywhere, but my husband and I have been listening to these together and really, 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 really enjoying them. They're a middle grade Peter Pan retelling series, so you get all the goodness in there with Captain Hook, and you get to learn about Neverland, and you get to figure out how all that happened, and you get to learn about all this background stuff, and then all this magical things that happen. They have this star stuff that's basically from shooting stars that fall from the sky that the star catchers have to find before the bad guys find it so that they don't use it for evil, and it's just so great. Tink's in here and all the Lost Boys, and I love this series so much. I gave this book 3.5 because it's set more in the future, a little bit past the other 3 books, and I had a harder time paying attention. That might have been my own fault, just being distracted, because I did have to re-listen to some things and me kind of wanting to be done with this series so that I could read other things, but I still really enjoyed it. It's super great. I feel like you'll love it at any age because it's just so full of adventure, and if you love Peter Pan, then you've got to read Peter and the Starcatchers. Okay, you guys, so those are all the things that I listened to in June, and I had such a great audiobook month except for that first book. So I'm kind of glad that was the first one because it was the worst. It was the worst. But I had a great audiobook month in June, and I'm having a great audiobook month in July. Stay tuned. I'll have a ton of July audiobooks to talk about, and it's going to be really exciting. Let me know if you guys listen to any audiobooks that you liked in June or read anything that you absolutely loved. I'd love to hear about it down below in the comments. And for now, I'll just see you guys next time on the bright side. Bye!